Welcome to the Dr. Stacy Show, where we're talking all about things faith, love, and wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Stacy, and I'm really excited to kick off my inaugural season. So each season, our plan is to tackle a specific theme. This season, we're going to be talking about healing Black men and lifting Black boys. I'm going to be taking the time to talk to some incredibly talented and amazing Black men in their fields and professions of excellence and talking about key areas of wellness where we can support our Black men and boys. So today I'm excited to have with us Pastor Clarence E. Jones. He's a native New Yorker, born and raised in the Bronx. He's been married for 25 years this August to his lovely wife, Cassandra Jones. They have 4 beautiful children. He is a retired professional basketball player for the United States Basketball League. Currently, he is a pastor, resides in Upper Deerfield, New Jersey. He is the founder and president of Mind, Body, and Soul Sports Complex, Legacy Classical Christian Academy, and has also planted a church, Mind, Body, and Soul Community Outreach Ministries in Upper Deerfield, New Jersey. Pastor Jones, so excited to have you here talking with me about wellness and social wellness for our men. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. And thank you for having me. I love this topic. So I'm here for you today. Talk to me. What questions do you have
I know we
today?
can jam on this. I know we're excited.
Yes.
So let's really start with this idea because people are talking about this male kind of loneliness epidemic. What would you, as a male, what do you think's happening when we think about loneliness in men? Why are men so lonely?
I think one of the reasons why men are suffering in silence with loneliness is because of more pride, more ego, not wanting to be vulnerable or even transparent. As men, we've been taught, I guess, and I speak for myself as, being a man, I've actually dealt with that many times, a long time ago, many times, just, being ashamed. I think sometimes being ashamed of expressing your emotions and not letting other men know that you're vulnerable or that you're going through something in life. Most men we have to have on the tough guy appearance, and society has really caused a lot of men to learn to just be silent. We don't express our emotions as often as women would, right? And so for a man to express his emotion is more like it's not manly, right? For a man to express his emotions. But I think in society today, and why men are so lonely is because number one, I think companionship, and companionship is not always in women. I'll say that again. Companionship is not always in women. Companionship, real friendship, real trust friendships with people. I think we can find ourselves being very friendly with people at sports arenas and games and concerts. But when it comes to, actually sitting down and talking with someone over coffee or tea, I think that's where we sort of kind of, internalize our emotions and feelings. And I think that's why men suffer from loneliness.
And I love how you're saying suffering in loneliness and suffering in silence.
Yeah.
That's such a great example because men can sit at a sport event for 3, 4 hours. You're thinking they're the best buds. They walk out
Yep.
going directions.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've seen it many a times. I've actually dealt with it myself, because again, when men go through certain things in life, and I won't put it all on society, but I think it's just embedded in us as men, how we've been taught. When you were a child as a young boy, right? When you fall on your bicycle, your dad would say, "Hey, get up and wipe yourself off." Mom would come over and she want to nurture it, right? And so I think what we've lost as men is to understand that there is a side of us that still needs that nurturing, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
right? And I think a lot of us, and even as men, and I think it's something in the Bible, but I think even as men, we don't understand how to nurture one another in our brokenness or loneliness. I don't think we know how to do that.
And you said something earlier, this idea that we also train up boys differently, right? This idea that the friendship and the nurturing that we see with girls, and it's kind of encouraged.
Hmm.
You ever encouraged as a young man or boy, were you ever encouraged to develop friendships? And what did that look like as a young man?
Oh, absolutely. Especially growing up in New York City. So for me, New York was just the mecca of friendships. If you didn't have a friend in New York, then you was just a complete introvert. So I grew up with the sense of community. I didn't grow up in a house. I didn't have a backyard. I grew up in a project buildings and neighbor next door, neighbor above you, neighbor beneath you. So I grew up with a community sense. I went to public schools in New York City. You know what I mean? I played sports. I had friends growing up. I think for me, and I'll just use me as an example, I think for me, I had to learn how to be selective on whom I would then befriend or even share my intimate parts of my life with. And I think that's something important. I think we learn that at a very early age. And then once you feel that you've gotten burned or someone taking advantage of your vulnerability,
Mhm,
that's where, as an adult, you kind of close yourself off. And
mhm.
that's where men suffer in silence.
And one of the things I love how you just said that community, right? Because our neighborhoods, our environment also encourage or discourage that sense
R-
of community.
Right.
Because then people who live, like you said, in houses, this is one of the isolations, the communities where you would think the neighbors know each other and they don't,
They know.
right? We're all individual homes, we're all in our individual backyards. Socialization, even for boys, are becoming through your sports, but not necessarily
Hmm.
through your home environment. Like everybody
Right.
on leagues, but nobody hangs out like at the family on Sunday, right? Like that.
Right.
Talk to me a little bit because you played sports. Talk to me about the I guess connection that we can see in a sense of community sports gives, but then what happens when the sports are over for men?
I think with sports, and again, I'll use me as an example. I played many years, I played 7 years professionally, but then after basketball, it's almost like the real world, you get a job, real life, you have a family. And so I think for some men, not all, but some men, we still have a sense of trying to relive our life through the past of what we used to do.
Mhm.
Right. And so you'll find out with a lot of professional players that they used to play football or they used to play basketball or baseball and they no longer play. And so I think there's more of an identity issue once we stop playing the game. Once you stop playing the game, it's like, okay, who am I now and what's next? And I think that's also a part of why we suffer in silence with that loneliness. And so I think it's very important even after the game, like what I've done for many years. I've coached the game of basketball, the same game I loved. I coached high school basketball for 2 years. I've been a coach on, AAU teams and regular, basketball leagues and stuff. And just teaching the skills of basketball, not only just basketball, but also just building character with kids and, camaraderie, with the kids. And I think that's important. Even as a coach, I remember many days telling the team to meet me at the pizza shop. So not just being a coach on the floor, but also being a mentor outside of the
Mhm.
school. I think that's important for us.
I love that you said mentorship because there's like this movement, even in barbershops, for example, where barbers are becoming trained in mental health to support because we know when it comes to where are people hanging out,
Right,
they're
right.
hanging out at the barbershop. And what does that sense of mentorship look like as we age, though? Are we seeing that still translate for, we always think of mentors where with young kids and boys having mentors. Talk to me a little bit about mentorship and the importance of that with young men as men.
I think it
Mm,
starts with trust because, a man will open up to another man if he feels he can trust you. And I think that's probably one of the most vulnerable places you can go to. I always say taxi cabs and barbershops, right? Because
yeah.
you're spending time with someone, you trust that they're going to do your hair correctly. They're talking to you, they're right over your shoulder. You have your taxi cab driver that's sitting directly in front of you and you can actually talk to him just one on one. And everything that you talk about is just between the two of you two, right? Thank you for this, Stacy. This is so great. I think for men, because we've been trained to be fixers, we're,
Mhm,
we're fixers.
mhm.
And so there are parts of our life that we can't always fix. And so we have to now learn to go to our brothers and be accountable, to one another, because there might be an area that you might have experienced that I might just now be experiencing, but I don't know how to fix it. So I think those are the things that would help as far as mentorship, right? You don't need a degree to be a mentor,
Right.
right? You could just be yourself. You can just be encouraging to your brothers. I think
Mhm.
yeah, that's what it is.
I'm gonna tease you. We're telling our age because you said taxi, and I know the young people are like, "What's a taxi?" Right? They Uber and Lyft.
Well, yes. And telling my age, yes. So Ubers and Lyfts, that's what they were when you and I were growing. They were called taxis when we were growing up. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
right.
So
Yes.
it's interesting too, because something else, which again, people also used to find mentorship in the church. But as we think about the institution of church, we're not seeing as many men in churches these days. Tell me a little bit about why do you think that shift is happening? And then again, I'm going to lead us right into what you're doing with men. But talk to us a little bit about what do you think is happening with men and why are we not seeing mentorship in churches?
I think, again, it goes back to trust. And I think that men have been taught indirectly to be silent, right? So we have to have this persona about, hey, you're the head of the home, you're the head, you're the head. But, there are times, even as a man, as a husband, as a father, that I need to talk to someone, that I need to just, let my, as I say, let my hair out, right? Let my hair out. Don't laugh, Stacy. To let my hair out,
I wasn't
to
going
let my hair out,
to.
you know but I think it's important. And so why we don't see this and we don't see the ratio of men in church anymore, Lord, I gotta say it.
Yeah.
I think it's because church has lost the essence of what the true purpose is for when it comes to men and building up the heart of men. I always say, if you can win the heart of a man, you can win the family. But I think that we're losing the true essence and the purpose of what we're to do when it comes to building up men. We're not paying attention to men. We're
Mhm.
not listening to men. We're only talking to be heard, but we're not talking to listen. We're not really listening to what they're saying. And so I think that is one of the things that are happening. And then I have to say this, Dr. Stacy, I
Mhm.
have to say that I think that for some men, not all, they
Mhm.
recognize that some churches, not all, have become more business minded
Mm.
and not spiritual growth minded to the point where I can trust you and be vulnerable with you. You know what I mean? Getting to know your parishioners, getting to know the men, right? I'm going to let you go ahead and ask the next question because I can go on with this topic right here.
But you know what? I
I
think
could.
no, and I think it's great. And again, leading into where you found the need to create and talk to us about the program that you created and as a pastor, why you feel it's so necessary to have this type of program.
Well, the program that I created, oh wow, probably about maybe 7 years. This is like just before pandemic, maybe about 7 years, 5, 7 years ago. It's called Man Cave Men's Fellowship, Man Cave, right? And so the reason why the Lord gave me the word man cave is just what you and I said. You go to the barber shop and you can sit in a barber shop and you can talk to the guys in the shop about any and everything, right? Sports, women, relationships, children. You could speak about everything and it stays in the barbershop. And to me, I feel like that's where men can be vulnerable, right? And
Mhm.
so we can now build trust. And so Man Cave Men's Fellowship was created to be more, not just a mentorship program, but also to build trust with men and where men can now find their true identity, where they can truly find their identity, not in the world, not in what your career is, not in sports, but your identity in Christ. That's what it was all about. That's why it was created.
And I love the idea of identity because men, and we talk about egos, vulnerability, like you're really hitting some of those key terms when it comes to men and their mental health.
Yeah.
Tell me about how Man Cave has helped with social wellness for the participants.
Wow, I've heard a few testimonies just recently that brought tears to my eyes. Sometimes you don't know the impact you make until you actually hear someone say, but we have men from all over, as far as Texas, Florida, Connecticut, Rhode Island. We've even had people from Africa on there, just people from all over, because what I really want to create is a place where men can now really be free as men, express themselves. Hey, we can cry together, we can laugh together, we can be vulnerable together, and we can also learn from each other. So even as a pastor on Man Cave, I'm not always the one that's doing the speaking. And so what I've allowed is I've allowed a lot of the men, even though they might not preachers, they're not this, they don't have titles. I've allowed every man to host Man Cave. In other words, to give them the encouragement and just to let them know, like, hey, you can speak, speak and don't worry about how it sounds, but speak from your heart. Be yourself, be your true self. And I think that's something that Man Cave is that's what we do. That's what we do a lot of.
I love that. And When you think about how often, like in a man cave conversation, how often does mental health or isolation or social wellness come up for the men in your conversations?
So we've had many conversations. I have plenty professional athletes. One, my brother, I think you've interviewed, Jermaine Jones, who played in the NBA for many years. We had Josh Powell, who played with the Lakers many years, played with Kobe Bryant. Josh Powell is another big advocate on mental health. A current guy that I'm currently partnering with now in a big pro-am league, Novar Gaston. He plays over in Japan. But I think when men see men from, I would use the word great stature, right? Barrett Brooks, good
Mhm.
friend of mine, Barrett Brooks, that we can all be vulnerable. Because at the end of the day, Dr. Stacy, we all put on our pants the same way.
That's it.
It doesn't matter what your social background, your monetary status, your profession. At the end of the day, we all still put on our pants the same way, and we all still have feelings. We all hurt and we have concerns. And
Yeah.
so I've created a area where, hey, let's put aside your profession. Let's put aside the titles. Let's put aside what you do. Let's just be us
Yeah.
and let's commune, let's talk, and let's reach the hearts of men. Let's reach the hearts. And I believe once we do that, we've seen so many men. Just like I said, maybe a week or so ago, I was crying tears because
Mhm.
I had a few men saying how much man cave have impacted their lives. To one gentleman from Connecticut that went to the military to do things, for his family, just to move forward in life. And I think a lot of men just need to know that they have a brother man that cares, like, hey, encourage them along the way.
And I think that is key. And you keep mentioning the heart of men,
The
right? And
heart.
I love that because we often think of the mind, the ego. We think of, right, men as brute, but like at the heart of it,
Yep.
men do need each other. That support system that you provide there. When you think about being a pastor, because you wear a lot of hats, right? And so do you think the church, as we think about the church as a whole, as a body, and however people want to define church, but do you think the church has a responsibility to reach the hearts of men and to really step in with this loneliness epidemic?
I believe so. And I believe that is the heart of God. I believe that's the heart of God. And I think that should be probably the main focal point of the body. And the reason why I say that again is because, the head of God, the head of Christ the man is the head, and then the wife, and then the family, and then it kind of trickles down. And I think when we lose that order and we start to disseminate on what the true purpose is of the church, then that's when we see the things that we see. We'll see the men in church, but they're not active in church. You need mentors in church for the kids, and you don't see the men stepping up, right? You know why? Is because they don't feel confident. They feel that I don't have the confidence or I don't know how. And I tell people, you don't need confidence on how to talk to someone or how to interact with someone, right? That's self-confidence, but you don't have to teach me how to talk to someone. And I think it's just more building community and building communication amongst the church with men. I think that is something. This is why, Dr. Stacy, and I'll say we see a big number of more females than males in church. And I use this funny saying. I say, yes, Jesus had many disciples, but he had 12 men,
Mhm.
right? And those 12 men were the ones that were to go out and
Mhm.
touch the heart of other
Right.
men, other people, right? And I think
Right.
we forgot that purpose.
Yeah. And I love how you said that. Talk to me a little bit about mind, body, and soul and what you do in your community.
So, Mind, Body, and Soul Community Outreach, we've actually relocated. We've been here in Upper Deerfield Township for 4 years now. And we just recently partnered with the school district here. Again, just trying to reach community and families. What better way, right? Than
Mhm.
to partner with your school district. And so by partnering with our school district here, that actually opened up the doors for us to now be able to meet families, children. My wife, she's actually thinking about being a teacher's aide in the school district, maybe in the fall, and that just gives us a more leverage of meeting families and meeting people, doing things in the community, not just having church. I always say Mind, Body, and Soul Community Outreach Ministries. We are more than just a church. We are exactly what we say. We're an outreach ministry. And so I believe that being an outreach ministry, it gives you more of the idea of that we need to be outside of the four walls, go outside and have, fellowship picnics or fellowship days or sporting events. We've done that many times here in the community. And so, but we've been here now for 4 years, and God has been so gracious to us where we're now in a school building. Our church is there and we have nice families and people that come over. We're still getting the word out. We're still getting people to come out and fellowship with us, But again, it's all about building that trust.
Absolutely. So, as we kind of wrap up, our final question for you. So, what would be one tip to help men in this area of social wellness? And then, what would be a tip for maybe those of us that are raising sons, our young ones, in this idea of social wellness?
I think it's more just being patient with people, being patient with men, learning to listen. I've learned this in my own life. And Stacy, I'll say I'm still learning. I'm still learning that everyone is not like Pastor Clarence. Everyone don't think like Pastor Clarence. Everyone don't respond the way I respond. And so I'm actually in a series called Experience versus Encounter. And I
Mhm.
think what we have to do is we have to allow every man, woman, and child to have their own encounter with the Lord, right? And not just so much give you my experience. My experience is just me. But
Yeah.
what I'm pointing you is to have an encounter with God because I can't change a person, only God can.
Mhm.
And so my job is just to be patient, teach, love right where they are, and then watch these individuals grow. That's it.
I love it. All right. So, as we close out, I always have my guests do a joke of the day. You ready?
Okay.
All right. So, because scripture tells us a joyful heart is good medicine. So, here we go. Why do phones ring?
Why do phones ring?
Hmm. And this is a Laffy Taffy joke. So, you just have to be silly with it.
So that you can hear the ring.
I love that. No, because they can't speak.
You know what?
All right. So,
It
Pastor
rings
Joe,
because they can't speak.
thank you for your patience with me. All right. So,
Yes.
tell everybody how they can connect with you, how to reach you, how to join Man Cave. Give us all your socials. Here's your time to talk about how we get in touch with you.
Oh, yes, very simple, man. You can find me on Facebook at Clarence E. Jones, Clarence E. Jones on Facebook. You can also connect with us on Instagram at Pastor C. Jones. Man Cave Men's Fellowship is every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll send that information to Dr. Stacy and she can share that with everyone. But we're on Zoom every Saturday at 10 a.m. That's for all men 18 years and older. And our services at Mind, Body, and Soul Community Outreach Ministries, we're located at 1361 Highway 77 in the Elizabeth Moore Elementary School auditorium, and our services start at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Perfect. Thank you, Pastor Jones. So, as we close out the show, I'm going to do my Love the Babies Well send off. Again, in Hebrews 10:25, the Bible tells us, do not give up on meeting together as some are in the habit, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Folks, men need safe spaces to gather, to connect, to be with
Mm,
other men. As Pastor Jones just said, even Jesus had his disciples to share in his journey. And
mm,
there is a beauty that we see in brotherhood, creating safe spaces for our men to thrive. Mentorship is not just for our little boys, it's also for our men to stay connected, to grow together, and to be an
mm,
encouragement to one another. Whether it's scouts, sports, or synagogues, let's be intentional about creating spaces that heal our men in social wellness.
mm.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to the Dr. Stacy Show. Until next time, keep the faith, love those babies well, and pursue wellness.